Let's take a look now how we apply this access control list selection criteria to the topics in the CCNA series, right? Because we're not talking about roller coasters and dance clubs and fast food restaurants. In CCNA, we're talking about data networking, frames, packets, segments, and so on. So when we're selecting criteria for traffic flowing through our network with an access control list, we have lots of options to choose from. However, the big things that we're going to choose from is that we're going to look inside of the IP packet header. And inside the IP packet header, we're going to be able to look at the source IP address and destination IP address and use those two pieces of information as selection criteria to pick out certain packets over other packets. Additionally, we can look in the TCP segment header. In the TCP segment header, we will be able to write an access control list that can filter based on the source port or the destination port, or both. If we're not using TCP, maybe we're using UDP. So in the UDP segment header, we actually can choose on the same thing, the source port or the destination port. So what that does is it allows us to create this selection list. Just like the bouncer had in his hand, he had a list of criteria that had to be met in order for a person to get into that dance club. Here, with an access control list on a router, we're able to use the source IP, destination IP, source port or destination port of a TCP or UDP segment header, among other criteria that I'm not even getting into yet. So we have lots of criteria that we can use to select the traffic that we want to do something with on our router. The access control lists we divide into categories on routers. We have two types. The first type is a standard access control list. Now, a standard access control list is an access list that selects packets based on the source IP address only. Extended access lists can do a lot more filtering. They can select packets and or segments via the protocol, IP, TCP, UDP. There's others in there as well. We can select it by the source IP address, destination IP address, source port, destination port, among other things in that extended access list, depending upon what protocol we are using. I limited what we're going to talk about with the extended access list here to give us some context to apply this. Once you understand the concepts of access control lists, it's pretty easy then to go adapt your access control list to some other protocol that's not on this list here right now. The big reason, in my opinion, that we have standard and extended access list is more historical than anything. When hardware resources were limited for routers and switches and whatnot, the software was written to accommodate the limited hardware resources. So here, the extended access lists are going to take substantially more hardware resources than a standard access list, simply because extended has a lot more criteria that it's looking through to filter a message. So back in the day when routers were first coming out in the 80s and 90s, the standard access list made sense because it was a lot simpler. It was a very simple access list, and the hardware had a much easier time of processing packets with a standard access list versus extended. In IPv6 access control lists, there is no standard list, it's all extended. So as we're working with access control lists, we can make standard access control lists very simple for simple applications, and we're going to see that in our next course, which is network address translation.